It's Thursday, July 10th, and we have a new special guest today, and she's going to be sitting in next week, so she's getting her feet wet today. Andrea Jensen-Berg is going to be sitting in with Ian and I today and tomorrow, and then it'll be Andrea and I for the following 10 days as Ian's off on a holiday, going to Quebec City there with his parents and visiting and all that kind of stuff. But we got a really big show today on the Really Big Show. Headlines: Carney congratulates Ford and Smith. Oh, Joly. Canada's military, a hotbed of extremists. Canadians say they would not fight for Canada. Liberal immigration policies affecting colleges. U.S. takes the opportunity to dunk on Canada with Germany. And Grok 4 launches, and the markets are on fire. All that and more on the Really Big Show. I'm Jim Csek with NowMedia. And then we have Iain Burns, our managing editor out there in the nation's capital, and Andrea Jensen-Berg right here in the office as well, here overlooking Kelowna on a kind of like partly cloudy day, but a beautiful day in the Okanagan. How are things out there in the nation's capital?
Actually, very nice. Very nice indeed. A few scattered clouds, but it's sort of high 20s, I think it's going to be today. Nice and sunny.
And Andrea's just going to kind of get her feet wet here. She's going to chime in a little bit, but she's going to slowly get her feet wet so that she's going to be on the go for Monday. But we're going to hear from her today. She actually is a seasoned voice. She's got lots of radio commercials and that too. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
We're going to kick it off with Mark Carney. Put out a tweet there on X saying the premiers are right on, and he's congratulating Danielle Smith and Doug Ford on their deal. So there you go. Mark Carney is saying the premiers are right on. Canada has what the world needs, and we need to get it back into the business of exporting it to new markets. We're building one united economy, and there's more to come. They did that deal on their own, though.
And they weren't, I mean, they were quite fawning and nice, weren't they, about Mark Carney, especially Doug Ford, sat there in his evil sheriff's outfit. He was very complimentary. Danielle Smith, you know, she's kind of adopting the wait and see approach, isn't she? She wants to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think she's very impressed so far. And she keeps on saying exactly what she said here, which is show me the money, basically. And even in this tweet,
that cap.
Yeah, even in this tweet, which is just miserably small for a communication from the most powerful man in Canada, and he's given us 2 sentences there. I mean, the first sentence has like a couple of extra clauses, so it's a bit longer than a normal sentence, but 2 sentences in which he doesn't use the word oil or gas. So, you know, again, it's these little drips. It's this unreliable boyfriend routine that Carney's been accused of. And Danielle Smith is saying, put a ring on it right now.
Yeah, let's axe this cap immediately and watch the jobs and investment in Canadian energy soar. So she's saying, okay, so thank you, and let's get serious. Like you said, let's put a ring on it. And then Mark Carney put out this little video clip here that really is getting Canadians ready for how he's going to separate operational budget from capital investment, and he's going to try and hide the deficit in this here. And we're going to play this little clip here. No sound.
I have a simple rule: spend less, invest more. Let's say you buy a home. The down payment and the mortgage cost a lot up front, but your home builds value over time. That's an investment. Now you still have other bills like heat and electricity. You need them, but they don't make you better off in the long run. Those are operational expenses. I will balance our operational budget in 3 years. We'll spend what we need to with the money we already have. And we'll do things that encourage the big investments that create jobs and grow our economy, like building millions of homes, making Canada a clean energy superpower, and creating new trade routes so we're not dependent on the United States. Spend less, invest more.
There you go. That's setting us up for, hey, don't look at that number. It's only half of that's, part of that's operational. Most of it's just investment. Setting you up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real fiddle, wasn't it? That's the kind of thing that your profession is good at, isn't it, Jim? The accountants of this world.
Yeah, you can take a stat and do anything you want with it. And here's the PSAC, the Public Service Alliance of Canada, and say, whoa, 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 let's not get so carried away with cutting. We got somebody you can cut. We're going to play this clip here from CBC on their reaction to these coming cuts.
That will be cut.
And so how are unions responding to this?
Well, they're sounding the alarm, Andrew. They're warning of massive layoffs at the public service. The Public Service Alliance of Canada is the largest union representing Canada's public servants, and it says that the federal government cannot reach its savings goals without job losses. Have a listen.
So at the end of the day, you're going to hit a shortfall. Do I believe that there's cost savings? Yes, I do. But it doesn't have to be on the backs of public sector workers. I believe that there's a way we can do this through consultation, looking at the contracting out of work that is already being done to save money. And there are solutions that we can actually propose.
Now, the Public Service Alliance of Canada had a briefing with the federal government this week to express its concerns and solutions. The public...
Yeah, we meant to stop it a little bit earlier there. But yeah, they're saying cut the consultants first and cut the contractors. Don't cut the employees. Imagine that, eh? And the Liberals have been really good and generous in the contractors and consultants. McKinsey's probably looking at that and say, hey, we got to figure out a strategy to make sure that we tell them to cut the employees first.
Yeah, and they can pay for it. But often the reason they bring these people in from outside anyway is because the current workforce is not capable of doing whatever the job is that they want done. So they have to go outside of the organization to bring in someone else with certain expertise. So a better argument would be from the Public Service Alliance here is, all right, get rid of these consultants and then we'll all go off and learn new skills and we'll do the job that they would do otherwise. But obviously that's not being mentioned, is it?
So one of the things that we do on this show is we do Fool of the Day. So you'll be picking the Fool of the Day next week. That's Iain's job here, and you know this young lady here is always a contender for it. And she made a speech there, and we're going to play this little clip here because Mark Nixon, who we follow on X, there asked if this was a speech or a Saturday Night Live skit. But we're going to play this clip here from Melanie Joly.
Is the place to do research in the world because Canada holds the world what the world needs. To all the researchers of the world watching us right now, I want you to think about Canada being the premier destination for your work. We want you to choose Canada because, you know what? We're a stable and trustworthy environment, a very democratic country. We have cutting-edge infrastructure, we have strong financial support, and we also invest in excellence. My message to you is Canada is not for sale, we're open for business, and we're open for science. Canada...
It's just not fair. It's not fair. She's too good. She's too good at Fool of the Day. But I was like, when I listened to that earlier, and the thing that I highlighted there was very democratic. Or did she say very democratic or highly democratic, whatever it is? And I just thought, what are you on about, really? Obviously, those words don't mean anything to the political class. They just use them in place of good and nice, don't they? They don't actually think about the meaning of words anymore. But what is particularly democratic about Canada, I wonder? This is a country where Quebec, there's no election takes place. There's nothing democratic about it. But Quebec has these extra privileges and powers and can steamroll other provinces. You also have questions with First Nations. What's democratic about I mean, obviously some First Nations chiefs are elected, some of them aren't. That's not very democratic, is it? And I could go on, but obviously Canada's a kind of a democracy, but I find it a bit odd to focus on Canada's democratic values as if that's something that we have here that, for example, the Americans don't. I would actually say that America is probably more democratic, and certainly a country like Switzerland is a lot more democratic. But I picked up on that and just found it funny. I mean, the obvious other thing to laugh at is, you know, why would a researcher come to Canada when they could go to Stanford University and get like 50 times the pay and have a much larger team and better technology and all the rest of it. That's the other thing, isn't it? That's the other sort of elephant in the room.
The one that I found there is that it seems like Canadian politicians really go to ideology all the time. This, not for sale thing. What does that have to do with anything? If you're trying to attract companies, why do you keep the political ideology out of it? Canada not for sale. Like, isn't that a given? Like, why are you saying it? Like, it just makes no sense to me, right? Like, and it sounds like all the time that everything comes back to it's the arrogance and the, being indignant all the time about, Trump and picking on that. And you look at the United States right now, and it's like a Charlie Sheen movie, winning, 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 winning. We're going to talk about it more. They need to figure out a way so that Canada can look like a winner, Canada can look like a champion, as opposed to just saying these things that just make no sense, like what you said. Like, I think we're going to talk about it later. A guy was just offered $200 million by Meta. That was more than, they took the guy from Apple. That's more than CEO Tim Cook makes. Like, think about it. Like, this is what we're competing against, right? And AI, we're going to talk about that later too. That AI is like, it's on fire. Anyway.
But it isn't just that, is it? It's not just purely money. It's not just about the money. It's also about these people, like researchers, especially in the world of science. What they want more than anything is to do stuff, And the most famous example of that kind of person is Elon Musk. He's all about just doing stuff, isn't he? That's kind of that's what he's obsessed with in his life. And I just feel like that's why people go to the US a lot of the time as well, because the capacity is there to do it, but also the freedom is there to do it. The regulations aren't quite as strict in most of the US. So I feel like maybe Joly, I don't know, I feel like maybe she's run out of incentives to talk about. So she's just making this very banal point about how you can come to Canada and we're all progressives and we're all left wing. It's kind of like, maybe that'll get some dregs of the research world. But really, if you want to do stuff, you're obviously going to go to the US, aren't you? Or maybe the EU to work at like CERN or something like that.
What they need to do, we're going to talk about this next, is the Liberals need to apologize to Elon Musk for calling him a Nazi and doing all those things. Because, I mean, this guy is leading the world in so many different things. Like Grok 4 launched last night, Super Grok, and it just blew away the competition. So here's a guy, has Canadian roots. His mother's a Canadian. He grew up in Saskatchewan for a bit, and we've vilified him. We don't want to use his technology. Ford X out Starlink. Don't want to use Starlink, and we've got Teslas and tariffs on Teslas, the best EVs in the world. So he leads the world in AI. He's built one of the most profitable electric vehicle companies on the planet, actually, and has achieved, the first fully autonomous delivery system with software that works anywhere in the world with cameras. And we can go on and on, like Neuralink, Boring Company, and all this stuff. Here is the rockets, SpaceX. Here is a guy that is the leading innovator in the world, and we have turned him into a Nazi. And there's nothing that shows that he's a Nazi. Have you seen anything, Andrew, where you would say that Elon Musk is a Nazi?
No, I feel like the term Nazi is kind of doesn't mean what it used to mean anymore. It's just something we throw around.
It's overused, that's for sure. And so Melanie Joly, if you want to be serious about Canada, pick up the phone and apologize to Elon Musk and get him to come to Canada, and because he does have Canadian roots and maybe he has some loyalty to Canada still.
I don't know about that, if he has any loyalties to Canada. I'd like to think so, but
I'm saying maybe. I mean, there's a shot, right?
Yeah, maybe. But certainly, if the regulatory regime was friendly to his companies, I'm sure he would consider Canada. I think Canada still has lower industrial energy costs, just about, than the US.
Well, they have.
So there's still kind of, there's still theoretically some kind of attraction for one of his companies. But I just feel like that's in a theoretical world. In reality, there's just no way, is that neither a liberal nor a conservative prime minister would do that, because his name is dirt in this country, isn't it, sadly?
Well, not with me, but they have invested big in Tesla here in Canada. There's dealerships all over, or service centers all over Canada, and a supercharging network all over Canada. They had a $100 million deal in Ontario that Doug Ford scrapped because, again, ideology, and they stood on this platform, not realizing that Starlink is the largest global communications company in the world, and now they're going to go with some company here in Canada that doesn't even have satellites in the air. Like, it's just It just baffles me. It absolutely baffles me. And then here's like in the U.S., they're getting record enrollment in their military, and this is what we do with our military. Here's a piece from CBC.
Extremism within the Canadian Armed Forces is an ongoing issue, not a new development. As Evan Dyer reports, there is growing demand for more robust action to deal with it.
I would like to say that I'm surprised, but I'm not.
Professor Andy Knight says his own interviews with radicalized Canadian soldiers and ex-soldiers done at the military's request convinced him there was a problem.
There were some individuals that joined the military to learn the skills. One individual said that he joined the military to learn how to kill brown and black people.
Police say the four men were seeking to create an anti-government militia and aim to seize and hold a parcel of land.
So is that the first stages of creating, this white ethno-state that so many far-right actors and accelerationists, for example, are?
This is like comedy or what? This is what we're going to pick on for our military? We underpay them, we under-equip them, and now we're going to do these stories like this is all the Canadian military? There's 4 actors, and this is the story that they run?
But it's funny that it comes the day after we looked at that RCMP officer trying to define extremism, who said that it's belief in traditional values. It's kind of, extremism means something very different depending on who's talking about it. Obviously, these people that are accused of trying to, carry out an insurrection of some kind of weird secessionist rebellion, that does look a lot like extremism, doesn't it? If that's true, but there's a problem with that word. It's an extremely subjective word. And it can apply to lots of things. There are lots of people around the world, I would say probably the majority of people around the world, that look at countries like Canada, look at somebody like Justin Trudeau, for example, and say, that's an extremist. The policies that he espouses are extreme and completely at odds with what the rest of the species believe in. So I just find that word is a bit useless, frankly, isn't it? I mean, I'd rather have a more specific word. Like, what is it? Is it white supremacy or something? And even then, you have to define what that really means, and how you can find out that somebody believes in that.
So they have that one guy that comes on. He says he's heard one example, not verifiable. One guy example of a guy wanted to kill brown and black people, according to him. What about the 99.9999% of the rest of the soldiers that are getting underpaid, underfunded? And we can't even get recruits. We can't convince people. So do you think that piece, CBC, is going to convince more people to join the Canadian military?
And another thing,
I wouldn't imagine.
Well, I was going to say another thing to note is that one of the fathers of one of the accused is alleging that the boy had a stroke after the vaccine. So to me, if that's part of the extremism of this case, that's not necessarily going towards like a racist tangent. So it's a bit conflicting there.
There you go. And then the colleges in Ontario, and this is across Canada actually, there are 10,000 job losses they're talking about here because of, it was that again, out of control immigration, and then you pull the immigration back, and guess what? You don't have the students, and the immigrant students pay more. So the colleges were heavily reliant on this funding model. Imagine that.
And it was hilarious, wasn't it? It was what is it that they say about certain companies, that they privatize the profits and socialize the losses or something like that? Yeah. Nationalize the losses. That's what was often said about the banks, wasn't it, during the financial crash? But this whole model is premised on the idea that everybody else will pay for all these extra people in terms of housing, health, everything else that comes with it, the criminal justice system, if that's necessary to be called on. But they will make the profits, and they will get those lovely 6-figure sinecures to sit around and sign the latest batch of Indian or Chinese students to come, who aren't coming to Algonquin College to learn whatever it is, cuisine, philosophy, or something like that. That's not what they're really interested in. They're interested in coming to Canada because they want to live and work in the first world country. Yeah. So it's kind of, they get to keep all the benefits, we have to pay all the price. And now they're whinging about it. And I think Mr. Lilly there is one of many that doesn't have sympathy for them.
Yeah, and then colleges cashed in, they took all that money, and that's their funding model. And then the governments are raked in fees, but also the Canadians got record rents and inflation. You know, like all those housing, those condos they can't sell in Toronto right now, those were all built for immigrants. Like, you know, like these things are like 300 to 500 square feet. And all of a sudden the immigration tap is turned off. So, and same goes for our healthcare. Everything was kind of like sacrificed. Like you said, the Canadians are the ones that paid the price for it. And now these colleges are putting their hands out and saying, well, we need some money because you've destroyed our funding
Bail
model.
us out.
Bail us out. There you go.
And they always talk, don't they? They're always like, oh, now there's going to be less cancer researchers and we're not going to be able to figure out how to cure cancer now, thanks to you. It's like, don't be ridiculous. Don't be stupid. These people are coming on that ridiculous degrees in many cases. And I know this because I've had so many conversations with these exact people, Uber drivers and things like that, who are like, oh yeah, I'm studying catering at, you know, West Canadian University or something. Have you ever heard of it? What a joke. It's not, it's just not reasonable, is it? And obviously people are quite upset. And I would say as well as housing, as well as all the rest of it, that's just pure, those are just like hard numbers. But there's also an unquantifiable consequence or series of consequences to this related to cultural change, you know, areas of towns or entire towns kind of changing and moving over to cater to students and things like that. That has a profound effect on the population that's living there, obviously. And that's not easy to, you know, put on a spreadsheet, but that has a profound effect on many people's lives.
This is a Holly Dome Blacklock story, and this one you just talked about this, Andrea. The COVID shot. Federal compensation for COVID vaccine-related deaths and injuries has nearly tripled in 2 years. New figures showed yesterday managers of the Vaccine Injury Support Program had withheld scheduled reporting of payments for an undisclosed reason. Undisclosed reason? And we can probably all guess what that undisclosed reason is. Figures showed compensation paid to date totaled $18 million, nearly triple the $7 million paid in 2023. Payments include coverage of medical expenses, medical and funeral expenses. Stats indicated a total of 3,317 Canadians filed compensation claims. Of those, fewer than a tenth, 243 cases, have gone through a lengthy verification process and been certified by a medical review board. The program was originally budgeted at $75 million, with claims expected to soar. Managers have been since acknowledged the program will go over budget. The overall cost of the program is dependent on the volume of claims and compensation awarded over time. And you know, Dr. Teresa Tam later in this story comments that, you know, like, we never said the vaccine was going to be 100% effective, said Tam, but people pick at that concept for unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, 75 million though, so that's still 50 million to go.
Yeah. And then Nina Anand is in Asia there, trying to ink a deal there, and she said they're close in an effort to diversify trade and reduce reliance on the U.S. Canada is actively seeking a free trade deal with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, focusing on sectors like energy, food security, and digital economy. Well, I don't know what digital economy they're talking about. They don't like Bitcoin, right? They make fun of Bitcoin. The Liberals have mocked Bitcoin, which is at record highs. AI, they're nowhere near on. So I don't know. Maybe energy is our thing. Energy is our jam. We just don't like to use the word.
Yeah, and visas in the form of education. Yeah. Student visas. That's that's certainly one of our industries, isn't it? But that, I mean, that can only be a good thing, doing a deal with these Southeast Asian countries, because
any deal is a good deal.
It's the favorite part of the world for a lot of business-minded people and a lot of Western governments as well, because they're mostly growing in terms of population, and also their economies are growing, and they're not really bullies. They're not like mad psychos. They're not dangerous particularly. They just want to get on and sort of develop their economies. So, you know, by all means, we should be very good friends with these people, and a lot of them want LNG, don't they? So we can sell them some of that.
Sounds like Daniel Smith has got a deal going there too as well. And our BC coast, that's one of BC's big jewels, as well as our BC coastline, gives us access to that Southeast Asian market. Maybe we can get the tanker ban gone. Here's another one where this immigration policy, record migrant labor fines. Look at this, So, like, I mean, this is even in the Okanagan. Federal inspectors this year are on pace to levy record fines against employers for breach of migrant labor regulations. Steep penalties levied at the first 6 months of the year followed cabinet complaints that Canadian employers had gotten addicted to using temporary foreign workers. And then we talk about this here in the Okanagan too. And some of it is almost like slave labor. Inspectors in the first half of the year levied all close to $4 million in fines for various violations, from a few $100s to several thousand. A total of 19 employers were banned from the program for 1 to 5 years. In rare cases, lifetime bans have been imposed for failure to address abuse and reprisal allegations. And this has gotten worse and worse and worse. There's lots of allegations here, like even in the Okanagan, about people paying to come over in these migrant worker programs, and almost like human trafficking, paying $40,000 and more to actually get into this migrant program.
What I always found strange is, I mean, this is rational. I mean, it's immoral, but it's rational, isn't it? For, or you could argue it's immoral anyway, for companies to want to bring in cheap foreign labor. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because they're always worried about trying to bring down costs. They want to get things done. They want to make money. They want to carry out projects or whatever. That's rational. That makes sense. But what I find ironic is that the people that kind of run cover for them on an intellectual level and a moral level are often left-wingers, who have all kinds of principles that they try and uphold. But they benefit these big companies who are often quite unscrupulous. I just find it's such a peculiar alliance that seems to have existed for the last 30 years or so. And, that's probably why this story is being done by Blacklocks rather than our friends on the left-leaning side of the spectrum.
You see nowhere. And if you subscribe to Blacklocks, you can get the list of companies that are been fined there. A lot of fruit companies as well. Obviously, that's the big part of it, right? So there you go.
Yeah, agriculture. Yeah.
Canada to align with the U.S. on you don't take your shoes off, Andrea. No more taking your shoes off at the airport.
It's a relief.
It seems like it's such nonsense. I was just like so irritated when just take your shoes off. Like why?
Yeah, I've forgotten to wear socks a few times and ended up barefoot in security. It's not the greatest.
And then this one is a terrible story. Police said child was likely attacked by an animal. Now they've changed that and charges a teen with attempted murder. 17-year-old boy is charged with attempted murder and sexual assault of an 8-year-old. Weeks after police said they believed it was a child, that the child had been attacked by an animal. Ontario provincial police initially advised parents to keep their children indoors after the incident came to light, but now they were mistaken to suspect an aggressive animal.
Yeah, I mean, that's mad, isn't it? How could and the question now in that community is like, how could you have mistaken, a human attack, sexual assault, and attempted murder? How could you have mistaken that for a bear? Or I think they were talking about a dog at some point as being a possibility. They put out like bear traps in the woods and they told people like, keep your kids away. So I think the question now from most people is how could you have made that mistake? But I mean, I guess it's possible. Obviously, we haven't seen the evidence, so who knows?
And then always in competition with Melanie Joly, here's Francois-Philippe Champagne is put in here. He loves the photo op, Francois-Philippe Champagne. And it's in here. He's pleased to reconnect with Sergei Marchak while in Rome for some conference there. And he says Canada stands firm in supporting Ukraine's economic resilience and their long-term recovery. Never give up.
Not sure about the body language of either of these men. The Ukrainian fella looks a bit sort of uncomfortable, doesn't he? But he's got uncertain. He's protecting his body like this. And then Champagne, as usual, is just totally at ease, relaxing. He looks like a medieval lord or something, doesn't he?
Another poll here from Angus Reid says half of Canadians said they would fight for their country, or less than half would fight for the country. So the majority say no.
No, I'm not sure. Yeah. But I think the most important aspect of this is actually buried in the data, because it breaks it out into age groups, And the younger people, so up to the age of 34, obviously those are the people that fight wars, not older people. Then I mean, older people can sort of maybe make a bullet or two, but that's about it in terms of their war fighting capacity. But they're much less likely to want to go to war, which is maybe not that surprising. Whereas a lot of people, like the 55 and over age group, are like, yeah, go on then, I'll fight this war. But that's, to me, is you should look at that, because it's among men. Yeah, here it is. I've written that. So 58% of women, so 58% of fighting age women said no way. And the largest group, so plurality of men, so 36% said that they wouldn't fight in that age group. And that's like the most important. Those two groups are the most important ones. So it's, that should be a huge concern for Mr. Carney and company.
But again, we've kind of like ignored our military at worst, and we've underfunded them, under-equipped them, and we even tried to get immigrants to join the military, which is weird, to get immigrants to join your military. That's who's going to represent you. And now we put out stories like this and talking about how, like, it's full of extremists, and then we're going to focus on that. Like, what would cause anybody to join the military? And then, you and I played a few clips here of the American military, and like, it's got to give you, like most people, like, pride in them. That's why they're having record enrollments in the U.S. military. Like, you look at some of the stuff they're getting done, right? That Midnight Hammer thing. Where's the good stories about the Canadian military? They're flying jets that are 40 years old, and only, I think, half of them go. We got 4 subs. We got the largest coastline in the world, and we have 4 submarines. Only one works, and it's a diesel sub. Who's signing up? Andrea?
Apparently, white nationalists are the only ones.
You talk to the younger crowd. Is there any interest in people? Do they bring up the military at all, or?
I don't think so. And I also think about the Canadians that are like sub 23. I can't really imagine any of them going to the military. It's we're not really. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of reasons.
If we were going to fight a war, it would be conscription, wouldn't it? That's the truth. And that would be unpopular as well. That would probably be revolts against that.
But a lot of people would join the D&D, though, and they would join the Ottawa bureaucracy so they only have to go to work 3 days a week, and they don't even show up for that, and they get 3 times the pay of the soldiers. So, I mean, if you're going to join the Canadian military, you best join the bureaucrats in Ottawa. Maybe
they can convert the public service into an army. That would be fair, wouldn't it?
There you go. There's that PSAC. You could write her a letter and say, hey, you don't worry about it. We've got a job for you and your people. The London, Ontario hospital sues former staff contractors for $50 million in alleged fraud. Oops.
Wow, that's a big fraud.
And then we got the Western Standard little clip here from them, that reacting to that RCMP officer yesterday, calling traditional family values as extreme. So we're going to play this little clip here.
RCMP officer went on CBC last night and documented the rise in extremism. And she flagged extremist behavior can sometimes be based on traditional values, she said. So she warned if your family and friends start, maybe one day they support, quote, gender rights, and now they are going to more, quote, traditional family values, then watch out, because they may be extremist.
So, yeah, it just stands to reason, you're wondering about why we want a provincial police force when, let's see, you might be a terrorist if you think that a man shouldn't compete in women's sports. That's pretty much what they're getting at.
Essentially, yeah.
Meanwhile, we have
There you go. And then this little we follow this table salt, and someone please alert the RCMP of a probable extremist traditional values. This is a guy riding around in his horse and buggy. There you go.
These are like the Mennonites and Amish or whatever, aren't they? I gather that's what. Yeah, these are also being blamed, at least in Ontario, for the measles spread. It's like, particularly the Amish communities. It's not, because obviously we've looked at the claims made that it's got nothing to do with people from overseas, even though when you actually look at the official announcements, it came from overseas, and then it spread among people like the Amish. So they're kind of being scapegoated on the measles side of things. So maybe they'll also be scapegoated on this. Maybe they'll be arrested.
The Stampede's going on. We'll just get a little clip here to show you how packed the Stampede is here. And they're advising you, if you have young children, not to take the Stampede, obviously, because there's a lot of cases of measles in Alberta right now. But look at Stampede. Stop the music, yeah. Look at that. Stampede. If you've never been to the greatest show, outdoor show, there you go. Head to Calgary before it's over. Have you been to the
Where do you buy your cowboy hat from, though?
Anywhere. Anywhere and everywhere. In Calgary?
Every store in Calgary. Go to the gas station. It's like, there's your cowboy hat, son.
There's big Western stores there. I think Lamarillo's, I think, if I'm pronouncing that right. There's quite a few Western stores there. And obviously, if you go to the Stampede grounds itself, they'll sell you a hat with a little markup.
Yeah. I need to get one, but I need an excuse to wear one. Can't just walk around the streets of Ottawa in a cowboy hat, unfortunately.
Well, I think from the age of 18 to like 20, or maybe 19 to 21, I wore a cowboy hat almost every day when I was living in northern Alberta, because that was a thing to do. I had the only shirts you could buy in the stores that were up there was Fields and San. And they had the Western wear. You had to get the ivory buttons and snaps. You couldn't buy any other kind of shirts. So I went from hating country music when I grew up here in the Okanagan as a rock and roller, and then I went to Alberta and they didn't play all the weddings I went to. It was all country. So I converted quickly, got to like country music, and I still love country music. But the only clothes you could buy up there was country, and then you wore a cowboy hat. Just the way it was.
How could anybody dislike country music? I don't understand how you could dislike it.
What happens when you play a country music record backwards? You get your wife back, you get your dog back, you get your truck back. There you go. All those songs that are about losing your dog, your truck, and your wife. There you go.
And it usually happens at the honky tonk. That's usually the setting, isn't it?
Yep. And then you got those songs where you say your wife left you and you can still see her walking down the road 2 weeks later in Saskatchewan. There's an old prairie joke for you as well. Talking about the prairies, Danielle Smith, she's putting out another thing here. She's saying, should Alberta take over the collection of personal income taxes from the Canada Revenue Agency? She's really getting bold here. The idea isn't new, though. She says Quebec already does it. Imagine that. Quebec already does it, right? And under the Constitution, Alberta has every right to follow suit. I'm sure Mark Carney and the boys are not going to like that one. And here's Danielle Smith looking out for Albertans, prosperous, strong, and sovereign. But Quebec gets always special consideration, right?
And that's the thing. It's kind of, how could you expect to have two, because basically Canada's at least two countries, isn't it? In the sense that you've got Quebec and then the rest of the country that has to, obey Ottawa and do certain things. But how can you have that? Because eventually somebody like Danielle Smith is going to come along and test it and say, well, they do that, so we're going to do that too. And then if she does it, then BC probably will want to do it, and then Doug Ford will do it. It's kind of that. It's a fundamental flaw, and this is kind of the contradiction at the heart of Canada, isn't it? That it's been like this since day one. And as we often talk about it, since James Wolfe accidentally conquered Quebec, we're in this situation where we constantly have to pander to French Canada so that they don't run away or cause damage. And the rest of Canada is not particularly pleased about that. So I would expect more of this sort of thing. And it's not just taxes, it's everything, isn't it? Immigration, they have their own rules on almost everything, and language enforcement.
Yeah, and then we're going to move on to international news. And this one is really upsetting. And this is where the United States just dunked on Canada. This should have been our deal when Olaf Scholz came to Canada in 2022 asking for LNG, and we told him we would sell him hydrogen instead. And here's this little clip here where they announced this deal.
There is some non-OPEC related energy news today. Venture Global, publicly traded VG, making a deal with Germany. They will now be the largest exporter. The U.S. will be the largest exporter of liquefied natural gas to Germany on the back of that deal.
That was our deal. We turned it down. And then I put it on my LinkedIn there. You can go read it. And there, when Justin Trudeau said there was no business case for LNG, and looks like the Americans have found a business case for it, and Olaf Scholz was still looking for it, and now the United States will be the largest supplier of LNG to Germany.
Yep, they're getting their money's worth for blowing up Nord Stream, aren't they, the Americans? Good for them.
And where's the hydrogen deal at?
Maybe it's on a whiteboard somewhere in Prime Minister's office.
I can tell you, you can go on Grok, you use Super Grok, you can ask it. A lot of corporate welfare handed out for hydrogen deals, lots of write-offs for hydrogen. And where's the beef is the question. Where is it? Where is it? Hydrogen really never took off for cars. And I think we had one hydrogen station here in Kelowna. Toyota tried to go down the hydrogen road, not much there. Ballard Energy, which is one of the biggest hydrogen, they make the fuel cells. I'd invested in that a while ago, and that thing, and go look at the stock chart of Ballard Energy, and you see where hydrogen's at. And LNG, there you go. The United States dunking on Canada, taking over a deal that they actually literally came begging for. And they also, the Japanese begged for it. Who else begged for it? The Koreans begged for it, and the Germans were here begging for it.
I think the Greeks also came and asked.
And
but I mean, this is so hilarious, isn't it, from the Americans? They already had enslaved Germany, basically, after the end of the Second World War. Germany was, a vassal of the United States. But what's Germany now? If it was already a vassal, what is it now? It's just, I mean, the extent to which they are just owned by the Americans in terms of defense, now energy. So their entire economy now is reliant on the US. They tried to do a deal with the Russians so that they could be a little bit sort of independent of the US. The Americans just destroyed that, literally destroyed the pipeline, or did it through sort of Ukrainian proxies. And look at this situation. And I mean, you've got to laugh. When people sort of dispute the idea that there's an American empire, just look at this. Just look at this solitary tweet from Mr. Doherty here.
Oh, there you go. And then we got another little clip here to play from the reporter here at the White House.
Crackdown on illegal immigration seems to be showing up in the jobs data. It's a point that the White House is making. Here's what they said about the latest jobs report. It shows that American-born workers have accounted for all of the job gains since President Trump took office, and wages continue to rise. So here are the numbers that they're talking about. Foreign-born employment has fallen by 543,000 since January, when President Trump took office. Native-born or U.S.-born jobs have increased by more than 2 million since the month Trump started his second term.
There you go. A lot of people, including Pierre Poilievre, talking about how we need to slow the stem of immigration here in Canada and support, because we've had some of the highest unemployment numbers for our youth here in Canada right now. And unemployment number in Canada is actually fairly high. There's economists that are talking that it's going to go into the mid 7% mark, which would be an economic disaster here for Canada. So,
yeah, and the election of Trump and these policies, they made The Economist and the Financial Times and Bloomberg and all the rest of those publications, they made them weep, didn't they? They were so sad, and they complained about how it was going to destroy the economy and all the rest of it. But the pro-Trump people will just point to that stat and say, that's why we did it. And that's also why you didn't like it, because you wanted cheap foreign labor. You didn't want to pay Americans more. So the battle lines are sort of very much drawn. And I'm sure the Trumpy people are delighted with that stat. And we're going to hear that a lot more.
And climate czar John Kerry says Trump was right about the U.S.-Mexico border. So he says, well, I mean, how could you not say that he was right about it? Adding that Joe Biden was under siege when he was running the country, or whoever was running the country when Joe Biden was there. John Kerry ran in 2004 and served as Secretary of State under Barack Obama, and he said, without a border protection, you don't have a nation. Again, just a little bit of common sense, John Kerry. But John Kerry is also a very flies around the world telling everybody not to use oil and gas while he flies around the world.
But the thing is, this is an example. John Kerry's come out and said this as if he's always known this, has always been true, as if it was common sense or something like that. But that's not really what it is. This represents a victory for Donald Trump and the right in the United States. This was an active argument for so long, and now he's won the election, Donald Trump, and his election was basically 90% about the border. So now it's almost like, okay, that argument is won now, so we're going to back down slowly. But it's interesting that you mentioned climate a lot, and sort of by implication net zero policies and that sort of thing, because I feel like that's kind of like the next argument, which John Kerry is definitely not at the minute going to back down on. So you have to wonder, if they're going to lose that argument, who's going to come out and do the mea culpa for that one? Who's going to say sorry and back down and say, yeah, you're right, net zero was stupid? But this is kind of, we saw this, didn't we, in Canada? This is kind of how politics on a macro level, it's kind of how it works, isn't it? Because we saw Polyev campaign for 3 years or whatever it was against the carbon tax non-stop. And he won that argument. It was a policy victory for him, even though obviously he lost the election. But you can kind of see how these things that you think the battle lines are very sort of drawn very strict and very, very thick lines. But then elections change things, don't they? And or, you know, political campaigning changes things. And this is an interesting example of that, I think.
This next one here, I watched this whole press conference here. The Donald Trump is one of the things that he does do is he provides access and openness. Like, I mean, we don't do that in Canada. Like, he's meeting with, I think it's 6 heads of state in African countries here. He's meeting with them, and it's a wide open kind of conference. And they're actually sitting in the room having the discussions. We don't do that in Canada. We don't see the deals being made and not being made. One of the clips in here that Canada could learn from this is every one of these 6 leaders, presidents, or what are they, prime ministers, different leaders in different countries there, on bended knee begging for the United States to invest in their country and begging to be basically curry any favor with Donald Trump, and all of them also suggesting that he be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm sure you watched this clip as well.
Are we going to have it? Is it on there?
No, there's no clip because it's too long. It's like a 2-hour-long press conference there.
Well, he's talking about trying to tell the Liberian president, asking the Liberian president where he learned English. I mean, that's just hilarious ignorance, isn't it? He doesn't understand. Liberia is created by the United States, created by freed slaves. Like a lot of sort of migrants, I suppose you'd say, went over to Liberia and created it, and that's why they speak English. Their flag looks a bit like the American flag as well. But obviously, Trump doesn't concern himself with.
I mean, you got to be
like
fair. He's got a couple hundred countries that are probably vying for favors. So whether he knows everything or not, but what I'm trying to highlight there, the openness though. Like, these meetings are wide open. We don't do that here. We don't have these meetings that are wide open like that.
Yeah, but the counter argument would be that Trump is he's doing this as a kind of theater, isn't he, to assert his dominance, to show his dominance and his strength, and to show how servile the the foreign supplicants are.
Let's have some theater here in Canada then. Let's have some theater. Let's have some access.
Well, who's going to be servile to Canada? I mean, if you can think of any countries that would come to Canada and get on their knees, I don't know. Maybe we could probably make the Germans do it, or once upon a time we could have made the Germans. But there aren't many people in the world as self-hating as the Germans, so we're going to have to struggle to find any more.
And then this is Donald Trump with that tariff, and I think we're done with Trump here now. That tariff that he put on copper, 50% tariff on copper. A lot of people not understanding like what this copper tariff. But I mean, copper is one of the most used metals. Copper is a big deal. And the price of copper, I was a mine site controller, copper used to be pretty depressed, right? Like, I mean, that's caused a lot of shutdowns of mines and operations because they do feasibility studies. And some of these things are only successful at higher prices of copper. And essentially, like what he's done is actually he's accelerated or improved the price of copper to make a lot of the mines in the United States feasible again, right? So the copper price is now over $5. I think it was like $5.61 I looked this morning. That's high prices for copper. That's near records. And so a lot of these mines in like Arizona and that are only feasible at $4 plus copper. So all of a sudden, a lot of people look at that as like an attack on Canada on the copper prices. But like more likely it is to try to put some of these mines into feasible production because just nobody's going to invest capital when copper's at $2.50, $3.
Yeah, he's playing the commodities market, isn't he? He is the invisible hand in the commodities market now. But Like, I can't, if that's the case, then all right, he's playing 4D chess and all the rest of it. But I can't help but again see that it's a little bit foolish, isn't it, for the Americans to alienate Canada? Canada's just such a gift to the Americans. When he's talking about things like this, about copper, and he's talking about semiconductors and all the things that they need, one of the greatest strokes of good fortune the Americans have is Canada sat there with an abundance of all this stuff, and more than willing to sell it and be very reliable and friendly about it. So it's a bit silly, but if he is playing this long game, then fair enough. But he's going to have a bit of a task on his hands to win the forgiveness of Canada.
But I mean, again, if you look at it from a Canadian perspective for copper too, if he raises the price of copper, it also helps all of these Canadian mines as well, because that's a U.S. commodity priced commodity. It's if they're selling it for $5.61, that's great news for like Logan Lake mine and all of these mines in around here. I mean, just because you don't have access to the U.S. market, copper is sold. China wants copper. Everybody wants copper. Copper is one of the most important metals. So, like, we shouldn't get too worked up. If they can increase the price of copper and hold the price of copper high, that would be great for a lot of the mines here in Canada as well, because they become feasible at a higher price of copper.
As long as we can find a customer for half of the copper that we currently produce, then definitely.
And the other thing they've done in the U.S. here, great news, they're saying President Trump, housing director, says that you can now use rent payments to qualify for a mortgage. And that's a common sense thing too here in Canada. Why couldn't you use like your rent history? Like a lot of young people paid $2,200 a month for their rent, and then the mortgage would actually be less, but they said, like they got banks is why you don't qualify. Right? You're just like, I've been paying that payment already. And they're saying in the U.S. they're going to actually start to make, there's a common sense thing too that Canada should adopt. I'm just saying we can learn from some of this stuff as opposed to just, like poo-pooing it all the time. And
Trudeau did actually do something along these lines to much fanfare alongside his trusted advisor, Christy Freeland. But I'm not actually 100% sure of its status right now, but it was announced to big fireworks and whatnot.
We were going to play this clip, but I won't, just in the interest of time, because we've got lots to get through yet. This is remember that Lahaina fire in Hawaii there, that, like the U.S. government responded very slowly to that fire. And it says like 1 in 6 fire survivors traded sex for supplies. Because the FEMA, like there was a disaster there. And they're saying that the reaction to the Texas flooding has been a lot more quicker. And then we heard all the horror stories in, I think, the North Carolina hurricane there too, where, they were actually ignoring houses that had a Trump sign in front of them, FEMA people. It was just like the politics, the rhetoric is just way too high. But let's get on to BC News here. I interviewed Harman Bangu here yesterday on the shipping jobs away. BC Conservative federal Tories call for the BC Ferries contract to be canceled. I advise you to go and watch that interview. Won't run that clip. It's on our site though. And the Conservatives in BC and the federal Tories want the money back. That $1 billion loan that's been loaned to the BC NDP to get that. And then Aaron Gunn, the MP there, a BC MP, is saying the Liberals and the NDP are trying to gaslight Canadians into accepting that $600 million taxpayer subsidy to BC Ferries to purchase this, saying that because there's no Canadian bids. And you and I have talked about this relentlessly, and also talked about it with Harman Bangu, is that, well, they didn't bid because it was a cost-based bid. And how do you compete with China when they use, like you put up that next slide there, when they use slave labor, or you could say they have human rights violations, they use inferior steel, and they don't have an industrial carbon tax. And then that next one there too, and this is just all the stuff that Aaron Gunn has put out there. I don't think this thing is going to go away.
Well, I mean, it's one of the biggest sort of geopolitical scandals involving Canada in the last decade, I would say, maybe next to the two Michaels thing. It's a pretty big deal, isn't it? So I don't imagine it will go away. Yeah.
And then Harman Bangu also now highlighting some of the medical stuff here too. Almost 12 hours to see a doctor in Langley, and then Abbotsford as well. And then, we see the ERs closing all over the interior of British Columbia, all over Merritt, Lillooet has been abysmal this year. So there's like we talked about this many times, the BC NDP have a bunch of pots on the stove that are frothing over. And they're just, I don't even think they know which pot to kind of attend to. So then they go after, what was the thing they went after yesterday? They're going to ban you to have one of those cats, like those exotic cats. Like that's the focus, right? Let's ban exotic cats.
They're after your servile. They want to get it. They want to take it away and euthanize it. But no, it's true. I mean, no wonder David Eby looks like not a very happy man lately. He does have quite a lot on his plate, doesn't he?
And this Mayor Ken Sim, who also wants to be the Bitcoin capital of Canada there, says Vancouver City Council cuts the speed limit to 30 kilometers an hour on streets to reduce collisions. And these are just in areas that don't have a yellow center line, so don't get all worked up. So it's just mostly in neighborhoods they want to reduce it from 50 kilometers an hour, that's the provincial mandate, down to 30 kilometers an hour, and say that'll prevent a lot of pedestrian accidents and deaths.
I don't know. It's pretty slow, that, isn't it? But it's gonna upset a lot of people, I can say. I mean, it's easy, isn't it, to say, oh, you know, think of the kids, them kids. But I don't know. That is very slow, isn't it? Just self-drive. That's the key. Self-drive will never knock anyone over.
Well, we got to take that moniker away from Elon Musk and let self-driving cars come back to Canada. Let's move on to markets. The stock market, boom, on record highs. And look at this. Look at this Bitcoin here. The Bitcoin just surpassed Google to become the 6th largest asset in the world. Here's the asset classes out there. NVIDIA, look at NVIDIA. We talked about NVIDIA. NVIDIA is now the top company in the world by market cap, almost $4 trillion, right? And then didn't they, some of the financial gurus had they said that was the end of NVIDIA just recently when the DeepSeek came out from China and said, oh, that's the end of NVIDIA. You don't even need these chips anymore. Turns out the only chips they were probably eating was barbecue. Gold, look at gold. Gold is one of the biggest assets out there. Canada
Look at
doesn't
Microsoft.
have...
That's what's getting my attention. Microsoft. Who even uses Microsoft anymore? It's actually amazing. Such a gigantic company that doesn't really seem to do anything except on LinkedIn.
Yeah, they do a few different things, but yeah. One of the things, though, I think I lost where I was here, but gold is huge. Oh, that's right, gold. Guess how many reserves Canada has, Andrea?
Zero.
There you go. Zero gold reserves, because they said back when Mark Carney was when the Bank of Canada governor was here, it said that the gold is an antiquated asset and has no value. Oops. Whoopsie. And they also...
That's why they get top dollar, these smart people.
Also, Justin Trudeau mocked Pierre Poilievre on Bitcoin. Whoops. Whoopsie. And then here's Donald Trump with his little thing. Tech stocks, industrial stocks, NASDAQ, all at record highs. Crypto through the roof. NVIDIA at 47%, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the markets are actually at highs. Absolutely on fire. And even though all these economists coming out and said that these tariffs things were going to kill the stock market, and not so much, Not so much. Stock market this morning, just fairly flat, all at record highs. So stock market's at 44,695 for the Dow. NASDAQ off a little bit. But, and then if we look at the gold was up this morning. I don't know where it's sitting right now, but gold was up this morning. It's hanging on that $3,300 mark very, very well in US dollars. It's off now. That's up about $1. And then Bitcoin in record territory as well. 112, I think it might be a record right now. 112,641. Wow. Right? And they did a funeral. We showed that clip the other day. They did a funeral for Bitcoin recently, the financial wizards out there. I don't think if you watch any other show, even the people that are dissing us here on this show, if you watch any other news outlet across Canada, they're not going to talk about Bitcoin and all this other stuff. Because it's to them, they're anti-crypto, anti-this, anti-that, and they're pushing a narrative. We're not pushing a narrative. We're just showing what's going on. So, you know what?
We've got culture wars going on right now in the comments here.
Are they? They get
Can't imagine what it's like to be a conservative and being enraged by everything every day. I find that's such an interesting comment because are you familiar with somebody called Jagmeet Singh? How about Elizabeth May or Elizabeth Warren, who I think we're going to see a video of soon? I don't think being miserable about the world is unique to conservatives. I see quite a lot of progressives quite upset.
I think that, you know what, most of the time the left-leaning liberals get upset when the truth smacks them in the face, and that's the tough part, right? And you know, and the nasty comments, just the nastiness is just wow. Just move along. Anyway, well, we thank you for your comments anyway. And this is Elizabeth Warren. Let's play a little clip here. She's Elizabeth May and Elizabeth Warren. They're like bookends here, but she's going to play a little clip here on what she says about Bitcoin.
But nobody wants weak crypto rules more than the President of the United States. A majority of President Trump's wealth, as much as $7 billion worth, is now based in crypto, from issuing his own stable coin to issuing his own meme coin to owning a Bitcoin mining company and to controlling a huge portfolio of crypto investments.
There you go. So just news for Elizabeth Warren. Donald Trump, if you went back to that chart we put up earlier on the assets in the world, Donald Trump doesn't have that much money. So I don't think it's all about Donald Trump, the crypto market. So sorry, he doesn't have
It's still incredibly...
He doesn't have $2.2 trillion yet.
I think it's still, if she focused on the point that matters, I think it would be a strong one and a good one, which is that it's incredibly weird and degrading that the President of the United States has started up his own crypto, scam, basically, a crypto rug pull. That is like one of the most disgraceful things that any president has ever done in the history of the democratic world. So yeah, by all means, Warren, get upset about that. But as often is the case, they shoot themselves in the foot and they sort of miss the wood for the trees, don't they?
Yeah. And then here you guys, Bitcoin breaks 112 for the first time in history. What a time to be alive. Yeah, Bitcoin. We've been talking about Bitcoin for a long, long time, and when it was in the 50s and that, and saying that the wind was in the sails of Bitcoin, and there could never be, the wind is in the sails of Bitcoin, digital currency, in this new AI world. I'm going to talk about more about this soon. If you don't recognize that, then I don't know what planet you're living on, but... And then Tom Lee says, and Tom Lee is a very, we're going to play this little clip here from Tom Lee on where the world is going as far as tech stocks.
As the fear of missing what could be, in your mind, a much stronger next leg even from here.
That's right. And it's merely a reorientation of perception, because the market's only up 5% year to date, but we could be up 10. So only half of the full year gains have been realized. So if someone had fresh eyes on the market and knows there's Fed being dovish and tariff risks are abating and multiples could expand, I think people could find many stocks to buy.
Okay, well, you stay with us. We will.
There you go. And then NVIDIA, check this out. This one's really interesting for people that actually look at the markets. Look at NVIDIA, $4 trillion valuation. Again, the highest valued company in the world right now, NVIDIA. And Intel at $102 billion. And if you look at back in 2009, comparatively, Intel was $90 billion, so very, like some people would say that's respectable growth, like that's a $12 billion growth. And NVIDIA was at $5 billion. What was that growth? $5 billion to $4 trillion. Jensen Huang there, he's going to have enough money to buy himself a new leather jacket there. He likes to rock the leather jacket, as does Elon Musk. It must be the thing, the billionaires club, they're wearing the leather jackets. But Elon Musk also put out this little clip here. We'll watch this clip here first.
Valuation they've got, they Jensen and his team have done an amazing job, but it really goes to show the value of any kind of AI. A company that is strong in AI it's just going to be crazy. And it will dwarf the value of companies that do not have advanced AI.
Yeah, just, like the people in the comments, like our regulars. I mean, no, I wouldn't get too involved in the scraps with the people that are just being crazy. Let them be crazy, right? Just ignore them. There you go. We got a clip here from Jensen Huang, too. Why not? He's the most important person on the planet Earth right now as far as money goes.
That we need more than anything right now is we need to celebrate skill craft workers. We've moved away from industrialization and manufacturing for so long that there's a void for the ability to manufacture things, make things with our hands, build factories, manufacturing things. And so I really love the fact that at the moment we're reindustrializing the United States, we're building AI factories. These AI factories need skilled craft. We need to go back and make sure that the trade schools are really well invested in, that we celebrate this entire industry and this entire field.
He's on there with Morning Joe. Joe's a bit of a, he says he's a self-described conservative, but he's far from that, I think. But
he's been on the scene for ages, hasn't he? And he's never really been up to much.
Morning Joe.
Good old Joe Scarborough. And I think he was actually a congressman at one point or something like that. But I don't have any idea why he would, as you build him there, the most important man in the world.
Yeah, why would
maybe,
go on?
yeah. But I've got no idea why he would waste his time with Joe Scarborough, of all people. Scarborough.
I have no idea myself. But Jensen Huang, a very sharp guy, very smart guy. Obviously, he built a $4 trillion company. Obviously, right? And then, and Jensen Huang said the most important company in AI is Tesla, and it's Tesla is because of the political stuff from Elon Musk is might be the most undervalued company in the world, and its stock's trading around $300 right now. Obviously, there's a little bit of brand damage with Elon Musk's political views that have hurt Tesla in the short term anyway. But I mean, if you talk about a company that is fully engaged in AI, like real world application of AI, it's got to be Tesla. And yeah, and then the Jensen Huang sold a lot of chips to Elon Musk, and he built that big data center called Colossus, and they did it, I think, in 8 months or something like that. Just like Jensen Huang said, that there's only one person in the world that could have done that, and that's Elon Musk, right? So again,
yeah, they're quite chummy, aren't they, those two? And that's good news probably for both of them. Good reciprocal relationship that they have.
And the Canadian government vilifies one of the most important people on this planet. Makes no sense at all to me. None whatsoever. And we're going to
goes down well politically. So that's the rationale, I think.
Smack right there. We're going to move on to our technology and transportation section here. And then this is the big news. And this is the huge news. I don't know if you guys have tried it yet. I don't know if you've seen Super Grok launched last night. And I've been using it this morning quite extensively. It's actually pretty damn good. Like as far as reasoning goes, it's supposed to be now able to write perfect PhD level exams and everything. And Elon made a big. You were in engineering. He made a big announcement or a claim. He said it's going to discover new physics by next year. What? Like that's pretty big deal. And Elon, like lots of times he is. Maybe he's a little early, but I've never heard him be wrong. He might be. He kind of like his timelines might not be accurate, but I've been working with Grok 4 extensively this morning. It's pretty dang impressive. It's beaten all the benchmarks. Then you use some AI, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I haven't tried Grok yet, but
Iain, you use OpenAI all the time.
Yeah, I'm a ChatGPT loyalist at this point, but that's possibly just because I'm reluctant to try and learn a new system. I think that's kind of like because they were the first mover. That's kind of an advantage that they have, isn't it? But I did try and use Grok this morning to create a stock image of a tree being planted, and it generated an image with two hands stuck together like this. Not so good on the images yet, but I haven't tried it with the reasoning, and I keep meaning to, but I just don't have very much time. But I will do it. Did you download the actual app then, or did you just do it through Twitter?
I did it through both. I did it through the app, and then I also did it through Twitter on my desktop. So I've been playing with it all morning here. Chamath, another former Canadian, now an American, he says he's a really sharp guy. He was at that conference in Toronto. We played that a while ago. Elon doing Elon things. Grok 4 is now leading the AI model, the leading AI model in the world. I think people may not realize how impressive that feat is. They started from scratch just a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, he ramped that thing in a hurry. But also, he's not new to the space because he was one of the initial investors in OpenAI, ChatGPT, right? So this market is heating up again. People need to take this seriously. They absolutely need to take this seriously. And Elon says that Grok is coming to Tesla vehicles very soon. So you'll be able to drive your car and you can chat with somebody smarter than you. And that's not hard for me, right? But I'll be able to chat with Grok on the way. And then the big diner opened up. I want to go to this diner. This is it's opened up a 50s type diner in Hollywood there. The Hollywood Diner Supercharger looks really sick. And this is just kind of like some of the next one there, the next slide. They've opened up a diner where you can get yourself a hamburger and get charged up.
And a drive-in movie theater.
Drive-in, yeah. Who doesn't love a drive-in? We got one here in the Okanagan, right? I think it's still open. Starlight, I think, right?
Enderby or something?
Enderby, yeah. And then the other thing that's huge is solar, and we talk about that a bit here. But here's the CEO of Salesforce, another big deal, talking about nuclear. China's building a nuclear plant every day, but it's solar. Just talking about the energy that's being produced here, and I'm a big fan of solar. I have it on my roof. Let's play this small clip here from this CEO of Salesforce.
It's very impressive what the Chinese have been doing with renewable energy, especially look at the scale.
Extraordinary.
And it has been a moment where you can see that they're adding this idea of a level of scale and energy with renewable. Just in the last month, I saw the numbers have been just phenomenal. You know, this idea that they're adding, you know, what is almost looks like one nuclear power plant a day in their, is that right, in their country, right? But just through solar. So when we look at that, then we kind of.
You and I have talked about this many, many times. Energy is everything. We played that little clip here from Chamath, and he just said energy plus equals productivity, right? Energy plus, what was it? Energy plus people equals productivity. I can't remember the formula used, but
I can't remember. But I mean, there's no doubt that it's solar. In a country like China, it's perfect, isn't it? Because in the west of China, it's like a lot of desert, really. Nobody really, well, it's an exaggeration to say nobody, but not very many people live in Western China. You know, you can like draw a line sort of from the northeast to the southwest of China. And on the left side of that line, there's only a tiny percentage of the population lives there. And it's very sunny. So you can just sort of go to town with your solar panels. But Canada, you can't really do that in Canada, can you? The best thing we have is probably southern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan. But yeah, I mean, if you've got the option, you should definitely go all in, I reckon, on solar.
I don't know, somebody's saying Mecha Hitler can write your reports for you. I don't even know. These people are crazy. Crazy.
Hitler is what Grok called itself when it went on that rampage the other day. It started to call itself Mecha Hitler.
Well, there you go. Well, you can ignore what's going on, or you can make these things, and you can act indignant, and you can do all these things, and you can't ignore the fact that this is huge. And you know what makes this huge? Well, Robotaxi, I'm going to say this first, is going to California, so they're ramping that up. That is probably one of the single biggest inflection points. Ignore it if you want, and pretend it doesn't exist. But autonomous vehicles is going to change this world. You heard that here first. Likely not first here, but you heard it here anyway. This is the first time you heard it. You did hear it here first. So that's just the way it is. And then this is how serious it is. Like Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, wouldn't go out and pay somebody $200 million if they didn't think that this was a serious deal. Now, that's a chunk of change to be thrown around for a guy's salary package. That's not like, hey, you know, like sometimes hockey players get these you know, like $50 million deal over 10 years or something like that. That's his annual pay package. And then plus, there's likely bonuses in that. And the CEO, Tim Cook, didn't try to match that offer when they stole him from Apple, because obviously it's more than he makes. But my question is, if they had that smart of a guy working at Apple, where was the technology? Because Siri's,
yeah.
Siri's as
But
dumb as it
also
gets.
Meta, I mean, they've done this so many times now. Like Facebook, Meta, whatever, they haven't really created anything since Facebook, have they? They bought Instagram, they bought WhatsApp.
Yeah.
They
Well,
just buy things. And
went-
this is kind of, I think, an attempt to do that, isn't it? It's just like to buy AI and then see if it works. But I don't know. I mean, they failed so badly with the headset thing and the VR.
They went heavy.
It just
into
seems like that
metaverse.
company just can't get anything right. So I'm not sure if this $200 million is gonna be beneficial to them.
Do you know what they do get right? They ring the cash register, and their stock is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Their stock is at near all-time highs. Like if you go pull up,
But
their
that's
stock,
all just Facebook, really, isn't it? And I guess
Well,
Instagram, which is somebody else's product that they bought on the cheap.
but their stock's at $720 US. You know, I remember when somebody was trying to get me to buy it at $29 when it IPO'd, and then I think it sunk on the IPO to like $19, and a lot of people poo-pooed it. Oops.
Well, that dominance that they have on advertising is huge, isn't it? Them and Google, that's kind of their bread and butter, I guess.
Canada continues to fall behind on EV charging. Again, I'm going to say it again. Tesla, supercharger network. They'll build it, and they won't charge Canada for it. But hey, you want to have
But again,
an
it puts in question the EV mandate, doesn't it?
Yeah. You want to have an EV mandate? You want to have EVs? So you're blocking out the best EVs in the world, and then they'll build the infrastructure for you for free. But hey, let's do it this way. See where it goes. Let's just give it a whirl.
There's another interesting stat in that story as well, which is that BC, Ontario, and Quebec account for 92% of EV sales last year. 92%. So it just means like Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the Maritimes, effectively, they're not bothering, are they, in those places?
Yeah. Well, according to Stephen Guilbeault, they probably don't need a car, or they shouldn't have a car.
They just get the high-speed rail that doesn't exist.
And here's our health section here. This one is kind of shocking, and we're going to play this small clip here on health here.
And not to diminish the impact this is having on our kids, but I don't know if you've seen that bumper sticker. It's like baby on board, and there's one that says adults on board. We want to live too. Like it's not just kids. We're seeing all different types of comorbidities rise with kids and adults, whether it's infertility, early onset cancer diagnosis in people 18 to 49 is up 79% over the last 20 years. Look at a photo of people at the beach, kids and adults in the 70s versus now, and there is a vast divergence in their body size. And we know for a fact that there are 4 key factors contributing to this, and the Maha report did outline them. The insane rise in ultra-processed food in the American diet. We have an
There you go. Stop eating processed. And Andrea had to jump out. She had a thing she had to go to, so she's just learning. She was just kind of learning. She sat in today.
Still got a mic on.
Does she? Maybe Rommel can chase her down and grab that mic. There you go. You never know.
Yeah, as for the health of Americans and all that, I mean, isn't it mad that how long has this been a topic now? At least since the 80s. I mean, I would say probably even before that. Why has it taken so bloody long to try and actually do something about it? It's one of those really strange phenomena, I think.
It just amazes me, like the sugar content, like the drinks is one of the big things, right? All those sugary drinks, you go to any of those fast food places and they got those soda fountains that are out in the open there, right? So you can get refills all day long, right? You go, they give you self-serve your drink, and then that means you can go in there and just get as much as you want. I noticed that like a long time ago when I was in Canada. Typically it's behind the counter and you don't get the refills, but down in the States it's like, you can actually, I watch kids and they stick the straw in there and they're drinking as they're pouring it in.
And it just tastes so nice, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah,
I know you might disagree, but
Well, I
if
mean,
that was like consequence free, I would just eat it probably just nonstop. I think I'd just be like, I'd have like a daily subscription to McDonald's.
my wife said I'm not allowed to say it, but I was a Coke addict, a Coca-Cola addict, and I would do 6 a day. So when I was 55, 60 pounds heavier, I was heavy duty on the Coca-Cola and the Pepsi. I would even drink the Pepsi. You know what I mean? Like I was a Coca-Cola fan. But,
True believer.
I would even do the Pepsi in a pinch. Like I wouldn't be just like, because you go to a restaurant and they either have one or the other because that's the deal, right? The marketing deal.
Yeah.
They only carry the one. And yeah, I would even do the Pepsi. And every now and then you would do the, this no-name cola and you'd be just like, what is this stuff, right? Or Jolt. The Jolt cola.
I don't remember that.
There you go.
What about root beer? That's the question.
I like root beer too, in the frosted glass. The root beer is good for you. I don't know.
Yeah, I do like a bit of root beer.
Now we're onto the comedy section, and this is Dan Ives. He had some advice for Elon Musk the other day, and Elon Musk's response was, "Shut up, Dan." It looks like Tim Cook. Tim Cook has jumped in on it, and so because now he's telling Dan Ives is telling Apple what to do, and he's telling Apple that they should acquire Perplexity for AI capabilities. And
is this real? Is this a real tweet?
Yeah. Tim's just like, shut up.
Because that's not Tim Cook's style at all, is it? That's quite funny. I mean, is he just playing along? Is it banter?
Just jumping on the bandwagon. And then this one here that Russia seeks to import 1 million Indian workers in 2025 to replace labor lost to the Ukraine war. And then Table Salt put out that thing. That's rookie numbers. We did that. We did 3 million. There is no war and high unemployment and no homes. I'm not sure anybody that wants to go to Russia, but hey, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if the money's right, but traditionally the Russians have relied on labor from Central Asia, from places like Kazakhstan, because weirdly Kazakhstan and a lot of other Central Asian republics still have like really healthy, good birth rates. So they're still producing humans, unlike the rest of the world, including Russia. So it's an interesting one. I don't know what the chances are of success there, but yeah, I guess this is increasingly going to be a story of this century, because places like Russia they're going to run out of people. And I mean, Russia already has run out of people. So they are going to have to, if they want to continue to function as they have done, they're going to have to bring in immigrants.
And then they're looking for Mark Carney's elbows. Got him on the milk jug there.
Last seen up.
And this one is just curious. And if you remember back the first flights, I don't remember when you took your first flight. Maybe you're not old enough, but I remember the first flights. You could smoke on the airplane and they served you this big meal and it was just like this huge posh thing. Now you're lucky if you get a drink and some pretzels, right?
Yeah. I can remember smoking. That definitely, I can remember that. Yeah. I'm not sure when that was outlawed.
Oh, it's like
but definitely, I even in my relatively short life, I suppose, shorter life, I've observed a pretty dramatic decline in the standards. Yeah.
Because usually you go upwards, and then obviously, I guess if you pay the big bucks, you can fly in some of those fancy Dubai planes and that, where you have pods and everything. But like they treat you like cattle now, and it's just like you get almost nothing. And I think in some of the WestJet flights, and they have that front cabin, the premier seating. I think it's only 6 seats or whatever, and they get their own washroom. 6 seats, you get your own washroom, and then the rest of the plane, which is like a lot more, they get like 2 washrooms at the back of the plane, right? So I've witnessed.
Which they're never free, really.
And there's a line up there, and then I've witnessed some of the people getting extremely angry, especially on longer flights to Hawaii, if they can't access the front cabin washroom, right? And you see these people, almost getting into like very elevated arguments, and then sometimes the stewardess will just like say, "Oh, it's little Timmy, the little kids can use it," but like adults to the back of the bus, right?
Yeah. They're Marxists, aren't they? They're raging against the class system on planes.
Yeah, but again, like they sell you those pretzels for like I don't know how much, or if you want more than one pretzel, sometimes they give you the free pretzels or something like that. But bring back the time.
International flights, though, they'll they're more generous anyway, aren't they? If you're going over the big oceans there.
And I think you would know this, if you fly Ryanair, they'll even actually charge you to use the washroom. Like, you didn't buy a pass for that.
The funniest thing about Ryanair is that if you go on Twitter to complain and you say, "What is this garbage?" and you complain about one of their little, shabby deals that they give their customers, then the Ryanair Twitter account, the official one, will come and mock you and call you a fool and stuff like that. So they've just kind of leaned into their reputation.
We need that on here, on our comments here. We need the Ryanair guy to kind of go back against some of these people and chastise them. And if you think you're smarter than a raccoon, think again. Here's a little clip here from this camera here that picked up these ambitious raccoons. Are we? Maybe? What's that? It's coming. Maybe.
Raccoon stole the keyboard.
There you go. Look at this. So watch this raccoon here. Flips over that green bin there, and there's a latch on it. But that doesn't stop Roscoe the raccoon. He's just like, and this is how you open this thing right here. There you go. There you go.
Pretty smart.
Hey? He's like, this is where they
Pretty
keep the
smart.
good stuff. This is where they keep the cookies. It's right in here, right? Pretty soon they'll open the car doors. Maybe the Toronto police will come out and say, hey, leave your keys at the front door. The raccoons need to get into your car.
Leave your garbage open. The raccoons need to break in.
And then if you're looking for all the elbows up crowd, they're easy to spot. They're easy to spot there. He's on the subway there.
And it looks like that dude to his right is also taking a photograph, just like a zoo exhibit or something.
So there you go, elbows up, and there you go. That's our show. That's our show.
Fool of the day, mate.
Fool of the day, yeah. Well, no, it's you. You're picking. You got a couple contenders there for sure.
Let's have a think. I mean, I don't just want to do Melanie Joly every time. I don't think that's fair, is it? She can't just keep winning. Who else can we give it to? Who would your fool be? While I think, let's have your fool.
Well, I'm going to have to say, and that's just picking on him. I was going to say Francois Philippe Champagne, but
just for his posture.
Just because he's like, But I'm gonna have to say it's the union lady that was Sharon there that was saying that we need to cut somebody else because they've grown. The problem with government, they feel entitled over these past decade or whatever. They feel that they get an automatic 5% increase in their budget. We see that, and same with all the cities. We're automatically increasing the CPI is this. We're going to increase our budget. They add more staff. They add more staff. They add more staff. At the same time, they're work from home. You know what I mean? They don't even go into the office. And she's saying, "Oh, we can actually cut back by having people work from home more." Come on. Right?
Well, and the key for me is that all of that you've just said is true, and yet services don't improve. Quite the opposite. They actually get worse.
That's
and
like
even
the
talk about cities. You talk about that's a huge sum of money for a lot of people. That's the biggest kind of lump sum that they pay in a year is their property tax.
Yeah.
And what do you get in return for it? Often they restrict the garbage collection. They do less of the absolute basics and close down facilities and things like this. So taxpayer revolt. That's what we want.
You're sounding like an extremist now.
I'm going to get arrested by that Mountie. But anyway, just so that she doesn't arrest me, I'll say that my fool of the day is Donald Trump. I think he gets to be in the limelight for a bit for asking somebody from Liberia how they learned English. So please don't arrest me, Mountie. I don't like Donald Trump, so I'm not I can't possibly be an extremist.
I'll close with that by saying winning again. Stock market at all-time highs, gold at all-time highs, Bitcoin at all-time highs, copper at highs, silver. We talk about silver a little bit. This all those things. If you just listen carefully, liberals, if you listen very carefully, commodities at all-time high. Guess what Canada has a lot of? We have lots of silver. We have a lot of gold. We have, I think, the fourth largest gold reserves
Quite a bit of lithium as well.
Lithium, iron ore.
Coal. Don't mention that though. That's the illegal substance.
Uranium. We could go potash.
Potash, yeah. Lots of nice things. Lots of palladium. I think they call it the palladium class or something, don't they?
Instead of
got some of those.
You know what I mean? Instead of whining about copper tariffs, we should say that's awesome. Copper prices have gone up. That's great for our copper mines. Let's just find a different market for them. Who wants to buy our copper? Who wants to buy our copper? Who wants to buy our oil and gas? Who wants to buy our gold? Maybe we should put some of it in our own bank. You know what I'm saying?
That would be nice.
Reserves? Maybe we should keep some of it. Maybe, just maybe.
The Canadian People's Bank.
And maybe Justin Trudeau's Liberals should apologize for the Bitcoin comment when they were just like tearing Pierre Poilievre up for Bitcoin, when I think Bitcoin was probably around $50,000 when they were beating him up for that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's still a possibility that it'll tank. I think a lot of the naysayers are hoping that will happen, aren't they? But it certainly doesn't really look like it right now.
The big moment for Bitcoin is when it's got ETFs. It's now the big investment banks are involved in it. I mean,
yeah,
there's countries.
It's becoming institutionalized, isn't it?
The countries are taking it on as assets, and you know what I mean, like, you know. It's just clownish to think it's going to disappear at this point. Absolutely clownish, right? Like, I mean, it's trading on the stock exchange. So there's too many people with too much money in it that, and look where it is sitting on the chart. And gold is a big part of that as well. And Canada should respect its resources more. But hey, we can pick some of the comments for Fool of the Day too. There's some nasty ones today, right? So anyway.
We love it though. Well, I do anyway. I love a good brawl.
There you go. We're back tomorrow, and then Ian's off for 10 days, and Andrew's going to join me, and she's getting her feet wet there. So, you know, it's a tough job, you know, especially when you're getting beat up all the time, right? But actually, we like it. So, bring it on, share it, like it, and had some good interviews this week too. So you can go watch those. We do thank you for watching Now Media. And hey, if you can get somebody to, if you're talking to a Liberal MP or something, I tell them to repeal Bill C-18, and so that the only news source we don't have left in Canada is CBC. And because they don't talk about this stuff. I guarantee you everything that we talk about on the show, you're not going to hear it on CBC.
It's true.
There you go. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside.